Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the House Ways and Means Education Subcommittee meeting. I am Delegate Alonzo Washington, and we'll get started. We have several bills in front of us today, members, and we have several bills that we're going to discuss. We have several bills that we're going to vote on, and several that we're going to discuss today in hopes that we can come to a consensus to vote on possibly next week, if not tomorrow, probably more likely next week. For members of the public who are on with us, our advocates, thank you for joining with us today. Just as a reminder, if we ask that you keep your cameras off. If there's a question from our members, on any of these topics that we have today, we will call on you if anyone has any questions. Otherwise, we don't take questions or comments. Today is not a public hearing. So I just want to thank you all for being here. So we get started with, we do have HB 240, which is a Montgomery County local delegation bill. We're going to hold that bill, and we're going to hold HB 380. And I'll explain a little bit later. We have some comments from the delegation on these bills, so we're just going to hold those for now. On House Bill 243, though, it's a another Montgomery County delegation bill that we have a letter for. Alice, you want to tell us what this bill does, please?
Yes, absolutely. So this bill would make the student member of the Montgomery Board of Education get a scholarship equal to the tuition of going to any school in the UMS system except for UMBC and UMCP. There is an amendment which limits the student salary can never exceed the student scholarship can never exceed the salaries that are given to the members. So if higher education inflation continues indefinitely, at some point, that would catch those members, but as of now, it would just be capped by whatever the tuition is.
And was this amendment approved by the delegation?
It was. The amendment and the bill were both voted on unanimously in the delegation.
Perfect. Okay. Delegate Palakovich-Carr, you have any questions or comments, or would you like to move on this bill?
Yeah, I would move the amendments.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded on the amendment. Any questions or comments on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Seeing none. On the bill as amended.
Move favorable.
Favorable.
It's been properly moved and seconded by Delegate Rose. All those in favor of the bill as amended say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, awesome. We have another bill in front of us, which is House Bill 985. We discussed this bill last week. This is the financial literacy curriculum and graduation requirement legislation. We did have a few amendments in front of us. Alice, you want to remind us what those amendments were?
I was muted. Apologies. So as this bill came in, it required that each the state board developed this financial literacy curriculum that it count as a half semester long course, that it be part of graduation requirements in each public high school. The amendment would have changed that to a half credit course to be offered to students in each high school, and removed, the graduation requirement part.
Okay. Any questions on the amendment? Do I hear a motion on the amendment?
Move favorable.
Okay.
Second.
All right. It's been properly moved and seconded. That was rough.
Yes, it was.
All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? On the bill, Delegate Ivy opposes. On the bill as amended, any questions?
Move the bill.
Second.
Sorry.
Man, it's rough today, man. All right,
We're tired.
Oh man, come on, it's still early. It's been properly moved by Delegate Rose and seconded by Delegate Guyton on the bill as amended. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the bill as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Cool, the bill passes. All right, next we have in front of us HB 753. This is a bus driver wages study program. Alice, you want to tell us what else it does and the potential amendment we have in front of us?
You did again. So as this came in, this requires the Governor's Workforce Development Board to evaluate the possibility of paying prevailing wage rates for bus drivers, identifying the vacancy rate for bus drivers, and report the findings as quickly as possible to the Governor and the General Assembly. It's emergency legislation to address the bus driver shortage issue that's been plaguing schools all throughout the state. There is an amendment that would remove the Governor's Workforce Development Board from being the entity to do this study, as they're limited in staff and their experience is not really in this realm, and it would instead give it to the State Department or the Department of Transportation in consultation with the State Department of Education. So that is a proposed amendment.
So we're removing the Governor's Workforce Development Board and did you say something, Delegate Eversole?
Oh, yeah. I've seen that.
Delegate Eversole, you mind muting yourself for us? Thank you, sir. And we're doing this in consultation with Maryland Department of Labor and MSDE, correct?
Department of Transportation.
Department of Transportation, excuse me, and MSDE, got it. Delegate Hartman with a question.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So prevailing wage study sounds like the bill could mandate to the different counties how much they have to pay. And there's definitely a difference between pay on the Eastern Shore and Central Maryland. Is that being addressed in the study?
Yes, there's a specific requirement that they look at the wage in the area where the bus drivers operate. And this is just going to be a study that reports back to the Governor and the General Assembly, not any mandated change at this time in any policies or anything.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Delegate Rose, you had the same question? Cool, perfect, okay, cool. Yep, no mandate, just a review and a study and seeing what they come up with, and we'll take into consideration everyone. All right, with that said, on the amendment, any further questions?
Favorable.
It's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Is that an opposed, Delegate Ivy?
No,
Oh, okay,
I'm in support.
perfect.
It was just a
Wi-Fi
double I
there.
think.
Yeah.
All right, questions on the bill and the amendment, Delegate Eversole.
Yes, Mr. Chair, are we allowed to consider the sponsor when deciding whether we're voting for this bill or not? I just wanted to know.
Always. Even if you're in her district right now.
Yeah, welcome. And it sounds like a unanimous vote already, but.
Yeah, that was exactly my point. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I was in the ENT presenting a bill. Apologize for the delay.
It's all good. You're excused and happy to have you here, sir.
Okay.
On the bill as amended, do I hear a motion?
Move favorable.
Favorable.
Second.
It's been probably moved
Sorry
and
so much,
seconded on House Bill 753 as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It was a study, Delegate Hornberger, for school bus drivers, and it was voted. The amendment was voted unanimously, and so was this bill. Okay, let's move on to House Bill 766, Delegate Kaiser's bill on residential treatment centers. Alice, you want to tell us what this bill does?
Yes, so currently if a student is detained voluntary or involuntarily committed to a residential treatment center, if the student is eligible for an IEP, they will have funding for their education done through that process. If not, they will not be able to get that, and they will have to have a negotiated funding, I believe, between their parents and Residential Treatment Center. So this bill would say that subject to available funding in the budget, the education costs that are incurred during that time of residency will be paid for. So it would put students who do not have IEPs on equal footing with those that do.
Got it. Okay. Any questions on this? Any discussion? Delegate Pelagovich-Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a question and then a comment. Alistair, so the funding comes from the state, is that right? It doesn't, or does it come from the local jurisdiction?
So it would come from the state. There is no mandated funding from this, but it's basically giving the governor a line item to fund in the future. And there's a section that says that it's the General Assembly's intent that the governor would fund that, but there is no mandate.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Yeah, I felt like the testimony on this bill was very compelling, and I hope that we'll be moving this one. Thank you.
Okay. Delegate Guyton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm sorry, I don't have all my paperwork in front of me, but is this also the bill where one of the main concerns was giving up custody of your child or is this a different bill? Okay. And is that still in the bill? Have we changed anything about that?
I don't think that was this bill. I'm not sure. There was no testimony against this. There was an informational testimony by the Montgomery County Local Department of Health that said that there might be some concerns with implementing this, but so I don't think that was this bill, but I could be wrong in misremembering.
I'm getting some information from Catholic Charities. Perhaps it did have something about, I believe maybe this was that bill. Could we just look at the description of the bill?
Can we look at what? I'm sorry.
The description of the bill.
Yeah, I think we all looked at this. You want to further look at it, Delegate? What do you mean?
I was asking if this is the bill where parents have to give up custody of their children to send them to residential treatment.
Oh, yes.
That's what we were changing. I thought that was the crux of the bill. So
I'm sorry. Yes, you were right. I misunderstood the question. Yes. So in order to get the educational funding, they have to go through that now. But if the educational funding was provided by the state, that would no longer be the case. That's what the agreement they have to go through is. And I'm sorry, Catholic Charities testified in favor of this legislation.
Okay. So with the amendment, we have the state paying for them if they don't have an IEP already. But if the state doesn't have the money to do that, do they still have to give up custody of their children?
Yeah, I believe if the governor does not include money in the budget, the current process would perhaps continue. But
is there some way we can look at that to make sure that isn't the case?
Can we ask anybody from MABE or from MABE or MSEA or?
Yeah, I know Catholic Charities is here.
Is Catholic Charities here today?
Mhm.
Oh, there you go, Reagan. Yep.
Sorry, I am here. Yes, so I'm unmuted, correct?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. So currently the state is already paying using general funds for the education funding, but it's through the Department of Human Services. So this is simply giving the Department of Health the authority to spend those funds without the child having to enter the child welfare system. It's really moving the funds, not new funds going to the Department of Health, except for I believe you have a sponsor amendment about a new position in the Department of Health that should have been submitted with the packet. There were 2 sponsor amendments.
Alistair, you have those amendments? You haven't seen any amendments.
I'm sorry, we have not gotten those in this committee, I don't think, but I'll reach out to the sponsor to see if I can get them.
One was a delayed implementation of a year just to try to address the concerns of the local departments of health. And one was a half-time position in the Maryland Department of Health.
So yeah, if I mean, we can reach out to the sponsor and see if there's any amendments on there. Anyone has any questions on those potential amendments? No, Delegate Guyton, was your question answered? You're talking, we can't hear you. Okay, I think you said yes. Okay, well, what we'll do, we'll hold the bill until we get the amendments from the sponsor. We didn't know there was any amendments, otherwise we would have We'll put those.
Sorry about that. We should have double checked.
No, it's okay. It's okay. That's why we have you here. So we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll hold House Bill 766 for now. Members of the committee, let's move to House Bill 618, Delegate Cox's bill. Delegate Ebersol.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move unfavorable on this bill.
Second.
Second,
On House Bill 618, as we moved unfavorable, there's been a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the unfavorable say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.
Aye.
Delegate Ivy, you're on this delay. The aye is Rose, Guyton, not Guyton, excuse me, Rose, Hartman, and Hornberger. Okay. Perfect. Okay, let's move on to, speaking of Delegate Guyton, let's move on to a Delegate Guyton bill. House Bill 512. This is the Professional Standards and Teacher Education Board composition. Alice, you want to tell us what this bill does for us, please?
Yes, absolutely. So as part of the Blueprint for Maryland Future Bill, I'm sorry, 513, apologies, on the wrong bill. So this bill would add to the PSTEP board, which works on credentialing teachers and making sure teachers have the right credentials to teach in classrooms. It would remove one of the members of that 25-member board who's appointed by the Association of Independent Schools, who currently have 2 members, and replace that member with a member of the Maryland Association for Non-Public Special Education Facilities, which is, we just heard testimony in bill hearings from many members of that committee for HB 1255. So those are specific schools that deal with kids with students with disabilities who need special education. And that is the extent of this bill's effect on the law.
Okay, we're not going to move this bill. We're going to discuss it today. There was some comments on it that I wanted to bring up to everyone here and get some opinions on. But first, wanted to see if anyone had any questions on the bill itself. Guyton, it was an idea brought to our attention that maybe we can use this as an opportunity to add to PSTEB board and their work that they do. Alice, you want to explain what that was, what we talked about?
Yeah, so I think that there's a interest in the state and ensure that is part of the blueprint bill to ensure that we're getting equitable representation in the teaching field. And I think that there might be some interest in, because we have this bill before us, altering the membership of PSTEB and ensuring that during the certification process and when teachers are brought into the profession, that everything is done to ensure that those teachers are representing the population of the state as best as possible and in general are as diverse as this great state. So I think that there's some interest in doing some amendments to look at the current certification process and ensure that something like that can be accomplished.
Essentially looking at racial equity within this process. Wanted to see if there's any thoughts on that approach. Seeing none. Okay, perfect. Well, then we'll take this bill back up next week and discuss it with the potential amendment. And Delegate Guyton, we'll talk to you about it too, as well. Let's move on to another Delegate Guyton bill, House Bill 657. This is the standardized behavioral health screenings for students. Alice, so you want to remind all of us what this bill does?
Yes, absolutely. So as part of the blueprint bill, this is the one I started talking about a second ago by accident. There was this behavioral health coordinator position was defined in greater depth than had previously been the case. It was created under the Maryland Safe to School Act, but it was defined here and given the authority to identify students' behavioral health needs using an evidence-based measurement approach. So this bill would require that a standardized screening be done to determine those needs when a student enters school and when the student and every year thereafter. In order to universalize the process, this bill also requires the Maryland Consortium on Coordinated Community Sports that was also created in the Blueprint bill to develop a standardized process for that health screening so that the screening would be the same throughout the state and administered equally. There are some amendments that the sponsor requested, including, so there's a group of people who's listed, who the consortium will consult with in creating those standards. There was an addition of a member there, and additionally, rather than call this a standardized screening, the sponsor requested that we call it a questionnaire, which is more accurate, I think, given that it is going to become a standardized approach rather than this evidence-based approach. However, there's also some concern with the way the consortium was done in the past, because if you guys recall, when the blueprint was first passed, COVID happened right around the same time. So things were kind of hectic, and there were some drafting errors in passing that in the first place. So there's a Senate bill that does not have a cross file in the House this year that makes several changes to the consortium to make sure that it fits better. There was some stuff that happened, like the Speaker of the House was left off as appointing a member from the public, and the President of the Senate was given 2 members that I think just happened due to a rushed process with a few minutes left in session. Additionally, there's no target in who's getting mental health and behavioral health grants from the consortium. And I think that if you go back to the original intent of the Kerwin bill, the intent of this behavioral health support is for schools that are hardest hit, community schools that have high concentration of poverty rates where kids really need wraparound services. So with all that long diatribe out of the way, I think that this bill could use some amendments to shore up that process. Additionally, there might be having a standardized screening every year could have some large fiscal impact. So there's also an interest for each county in mirroring when the physical screenings are given, along with hearing and vision screenings, maybe when the student enters the school in the 3rd grade and the 5th grade and 8th grade. So that is open for discussion among you all.
Thank you, Alistair. Questions, Delegate Ebersol.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I asked this question during the hearing on this, and I'd like us to think about it again. Screenings are very good. They compile a lot of data. Is there any indication or has there been any thought about designating a person who will actually review it to look for the kind of red flags that this kind of data is supposed to provide?
Yeah, no, I like that too, actually, that someone looks at this. I mean, that would be kind of the purpose, right? Like if we take it and someone should review it. Delegate, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, our understanding based on how the blueprint was written, and I could be wrong, so you can change this however you want to, because I agree with Delegate Ebersol on that, is that it is the coordinator that would be the person taking that action. So the coordinators that are appointed, is that your understanding, Alistair, or do we need to appoint someone different?
Yeah, I think
coordinator, you mean the community school coordinator? Delegate?
Yes.
Are you sure you're not the behavioral health coordinator?
We can say whomever. I don't know.
Yeah,
You don't mean community school
Some
coordinator.
coordinator in there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I guess behavioral health coordinator would probably be more appropriate for that.
Because every school,
Right.
every
Mhm.
LEA must have a behavioral health coordinator. Is that right, Alistair? So I think that's what you meant, Delegate Guyton,
Thank you.
that position. Yeah. Eric, Delegate Ebersol.
So it should go, I think that's great, but that one person is not going to be able to do all that
Correct.
if you have a school. So I think we should say that person will designate somebody in each school building who will review. I would have to say with the cooperation of the administration, because otherwise they will do it in a cursory way. If you give one person or one office this task of, in Howard County, 55,000 students, I forget the number in Baltimore County. So we have to break this process up so these are actually gathered for a reason. Thank you.
But I also say just due to limited resources, that person should be responsible for compiling this information so that resources are diverted to places where they're necessary, right? So we should make sure that, it's equitable and that person is designated for looking at it at a level of the entire school system. So I do like that, and we should point that out too. Any other questions on this? Any thoughts on it not being the questionnaire? Because we're changing it from it being one of the amendments is changing it from being a
Standardized
screening to a questionnaire. Thank you, Alistair. And so any questions on that piece? I do like that piece as well. Cool. And also we talked about it being done we need to figure out if it's not going to be if it's not every year, then what frequency do we want should we have it when a student first enters the school, whether they enter into elementary school from another place or they enter into from elementary school to middle school, from middle school to 12th grade, should they be checked every time? I wonder what the frequency could be. You want to respond to that?
Yeah, so the reason behind the every year is that already school systems are doing the questionnaires every year, most of them. And so it's really just following up on what they're already doing. So if we're really talking about screenings, if we don't change that to questionnaire, then doing an actual screening every year really probably isn't doable for our school system. But if we're really just talking about the questionnaire, then it's very limited fiscal note, and they're pretty much doing that anyway.
And how much, do we know how long these questionnaires / screenings are? Do we know how long they are at all?
Right, so we gave examples of the different school systems during the hearing. So you actually have most of the questionnaires in your folder, but if you want to see them, I can bring them down to your office.
No. I have all the testimony right here in front of me. So I'll take a look. Oh, I see one now from Frederick and Kent and St. Mary's and Talbot, Baltimore City and Roanoke. Okay, there's a lot of them.
Just real quick to follow,
Sure.
About how long are they? I could go look them up and maybe are they 5 minutes,
it's a check. No, it's even shorter than that. It's a check.
Okay, great.
And it depends on the county. Talbot has something really small. Anne Arundel's looks like it's really small. Kent's is very small. St. Mary's is very small. I wonder what they're getting from this information. If it's like one is much larger than the other and it's not equitable either, right? We're not.
That's the point of the bill. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
Well, I'm trying to help you out here, Titan. Man, these are great visuals. Delegate episode with a follow-up.
So could we stipulate it has to be of approximately the same length as ones in use? If you create a group that creates them, they might become more zealous about it. And we want to make sure that I think if they're too long, some parents won't do them.
The bill makes it standard, so that's part of what the bill is doing. It's giving the consortium the authority to develop it, and then everyone will give the questionnaires that the consortium has developed.
Delegate episode, you want to come down here and look at my paperwork?
I do. I probably have them somewhere too. But I just want to suggest that we put some guardrails on, when you start to put them together, if you take everything and put it in there. I think you'll get a better response if we keep it reasonable. Maybe we should just say of reasonable length or something like that. I don't know.
We don't want to be too prescriptive because they're going to be created themselves, and we don't want to do too much of it. Give them at least a little latitude. Delegate Polakovich-Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to point out that Delegate Ebersol cut in line twice in terms of making comments.
Thank you for that.
Like he's ashamed now.
He is. It's a follow-up. It was a follow-up.
Follow-up to my question.
Yes.
He's a bully.
Back to the bill. So I'll just say, if this is helpful. So my experience as a parent of a first grader, I've only had to go through this twice, but I'm pretty sure this questionnaire was actually part of the bigger packet of information that I had to fill out when my son was first enrolling. And then this year, actually, it's like an electronic system. And I just had to go in and just look at it all and say, yes, this all is still correct. But it was part of okay, what's our address? What's our contact information? Who's authorized to pick our kid up from school? And this was just one part of a larger set of information that the school needed to collect. So I would actually say I wouldn't be too concerned about the length piece on this, because I think most schools are already wrapping this into a bunch of other things that parents need to report to the school anyways.
It makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Delegate Polakovich-Carr, who's a parent currently in our school system. Delegate Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And actually, that was very helpful, Delegate Polakovich-Carr. So just so that I'm following all of this, so we are changing it to a questionnaire that's going to save money. So overall, that's what we're doing, just with the.
I think the idea of changing it from it being a screening to it being a questionnaire is just terminology, honestly, and it sounds bad to not sounds bad, but there's something to the word screening that sends a negative effect to parents and other folks in the profession, and so questionnaire sounds like we're we're intrigued by what's happening with your student.
Okay, and this is not like so this. I think Delegate Guyton mentioned this would greatly reduce the potential fiscal impact. Is that correct? Okay, so okay. I think I'm clear now. Thank you very much.
And I think what we heard from Delegate Polakovich-Carr is that they probably won't even have to print this thing out. They'll probably just do it online, right? So
perfect. Thank you.
I think the idea of the bill is to make sure it's all standardized too, right? Everybody,
okay.
Is there a reporting requirement for that this goes to the consortium or to MSDE for all of these to review, to look at the needs of students throughout the state?
There's not, but I think that might be an excellent addition to this.
I mean, I think as a state, we should be looking at this too, right? I mean, just to make sure we're providing resources back to our school system in an equitable way, right? Delegate, are you okay with that?
I'm fine with it.
Cool. All right. Any other questions or comments? Man, seems like a great bill. Okay. Our last bill we're going to discuss today is HB 836. This is Delegate Learman's bill. Alice, you want to tell us what this bill does?
Yes, sorry about that. So this bill is.
I'm sorry, Alice, 1 second. I'm sorry. Can I go back to House Bill 657 for a second? I want to see if anyone from PAZAM or MABE might have any comments on that bill. All right, seeing none, thank you. We'll go ahead, Alistair, continue.
I think Mary Pat might have been about to speak, but
I didn't see any movement. Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I was trying to pull it up, but no, I don't have any comments right now. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. House Bill 836, also named the Elijah Gorman Act, is on student athletics. The goal here is to require that each middle school and high school develop specific requirements related to heat stroke and other injuries, have specific policies for the use of defibrillators on their schools, grounds, and address other potential injuries that could occur. We have an amendment that rearranges the position of things in the bill, but otherwise mostly leaves things as they are. School personnel would have to be trained in heat stroke prevention. There would have to be a particular safety plan unique to that school to prevent heat stroke and other concussion and other injuries that could arise from the playing of sports. And that is essentially what this bill would do.
Yeah, I talked to Mr. McNair, who's a parent of a student that passed away at the University of Maryland. University of Maryland, who was a football player, and they support the bill and thought it was a good bill. I noticed that there's multiple testimonies here that ask for amendments to the bill. Alistair, do we actually have any amendments that were submitted by the sponsor?
Yes, the sponsor did submit an amendment. I'm not sure if it addresses all of the concerns of everyone. I think it's, in my read of it, it's largely in the same position. There are some things that are a little bit less specific, like defibrillator does not need to be placed immediately next to the field anymore, but there's still a lot of training requirements and things of that ilk, which some of the testimony was against.
Got it. Fair enough. Okay, cool. Questions. I'm going to take Delegate Hornberger first because Delegate Arbusol stepped in front of everybody before.
Yeah, thank you for letting me jump in front of my colleague there. I know that usually there's a physical trainer that kind of floats during practices, during games. You have coaches, assistant coaches. Who exactly is going to get trained on this and then be certified in the use of it? Because I know that you have to, isn't there a certification that comes along with being able to administer?
Yeah, I have no clue. I'm not sure if Alistair is looking for the answer to that.
Yes, sorry about that. Looking. It doesn't, as written, there's no requirement. I believe in the amendments, it was athletic staff on the team, but that's using my memory and not necessarily a reliable one. So
In the bill, it says, the county board shall ensure that an individual trained and that acclimatization safety is present at all school-sponsored athletic practices and events. Sounds like a heavy job.
Yeah, because the case that happened at the University of Maryland, that being a college team, football team, there was lots of quote unquote qualified people there, but no one recognized what was occurring. And it was a latent effect long after the student was sent home. So, okay, thanks.
Yep, absolutely. Delegate Ebersol.
I was waiting to see if somebody else wanted to go. I believe, if I'm not incorrect, because I asked the sponsor this question, there's a whole section 7-129. That's a whole lot of reporting. And she said they submitted an amendment to remove that. Have we got that yet? Because it's pretty onerous reporting at the beginning. I was wondering why they had all that when the real goal was the second part of the bill.
yes, her amendment still has reporting. I'm not sure if it's exactly the same reporting, but there is still reporting for all incidents that have occurred that the counties have to do, and then that has to be aggregated and reported to.
Yeah, there's some reporting later in the bill, but section 7-129, the first section, is that still intact?
I mean,
No.
it's still 7-129 is still in the bill.
But does the amendment leave it intact or not?
So the amendment removes it, but adds another section 7-450 that has the same reporting, I think, or very similar reporting.
So do we have access to that? I'd like to see how much reporting there is.
Yes, Haley emails all the amendments that.
I'll take a look for it. Thank you.
And Delegate Ebersol, you gotta come prepared to these meetings, sir. Delegate Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my question, and it's sort of, I made a couple notes after what Kevin was asking. So there needs to be a defibrillator and somebody that can operate it at all school-sponsored sporting events. So just, going back to when I was a parent, on any, given the season and what's going on, there could be girls lacrosse, boys lacrosse, baseball. Like there's going to be a lot of multiple events going on simultaneously. So I appreciate the tragedy and the intent of the bill. My concern is how practical this is going to be. And I remember several years ago in HGO, a bill about having defibrillators required in all restaurants. And I recall there's a cost for these defibrillators, obviously. You obviously have to have ongoing training and making sure somebody's always there that's trained. And then these defibrillators, they don't exist like forever. So like there has to be maintenance and there's costs. So I have a lot, I really like the intent of the bill. Obviously we want our kids to be safe, but I just have a lot of problems with the implementation, the practicality of it. So that's just my 2 cents there.
I will say, Delegate Rose, that the defibrillator being at every event is a piece that has been removed in the amendment. There is currently a requirement that each school has to have a defibrillator, and that's in current law. And
the problem is that it's not accessible most times.
Right.
Yeah, defibrillator, you're going to need it, like, isn't it like an immediate need? Like it's pretty much, so I just don't know how practical, while very well intentioned, and that's just, those are my concerns.
Thank you, Delegate. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, I urge the committee to think about the bill a little bit more and see what we can do to help, to come with some good ideas for our next meeting. Obviously, there is a need there, but to figure out what's, like you said, what's practical and what we can do to help from a legislative standpoint. That would be helpful to the students and their parents. Delegate Hartman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, as more people talk, I'm just thinking as well. I mean, you think of the golf team. It's, you know what I'm saying? People are scattered. It's and you're saying like multiple events. I'm, reflecting back when the kids were in high school. It's just there's so many things going on multiple fields, a far distance from the school building. I agree. It is well intentioned, but the I don't know what the life of a defibrillator is either. It would probably become a pretty hefty number as far as a fiscal note. So anyway, just starting to have concerns as we discuss it more. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, so we'll think more on House Bill 836. I'll just make sure I don't miss any of these bills. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I think we have concluded our list of bills today. Please let me know if you guys have anything on your mind or anything that we need to move, but I want to just thank